I'm being criticized. I could see yesterday that I'm appointing a 91-year-old to look after the youth sports fund and lakini jameni, let me put yourself in my shoes. Ukiona vile watu wanaiba pesa, mimi afadhali nikae na huyo mzee bwana, achunge hiyo pesa itumike vile inatakikana. Bwana. Sasa mnataka tuende na tumeona vile watu wakipatiwa kazi kama hiyo vile wanaenda kufanya, si afadhali tupatie huyo mzee achunge ndio iwarudie. Watu waniwache bwana, mimi sitaki mambo mingi.
Nyinyi muachane na President Uhuru Kenyatta, amesema afadhali ape mzee achunge pesa. However, that was not the only appointment that was controversial. So hours after government announced several appointments to various positions in state agencies, on Monday, Kenyans have taken to social media to express their displeasure with some of those picked for the posts. In a special Gazette notice dated October 14th, President Uhuru Kenyatta announced he had appointed 8 people to State Corporations Advisory Committee, while Labour Cabinet Secretary Kuri Atani announced his pick for the chairperson for the National Employment Authority. It is the Atani's choice that has outraged Kenyans who wonder whether the appointment of former Othaya Member of Parliament Mary Wambui was done on merit. Kenyans, including political leaders on social media, claimed that Ms. Wambui is out of touch with realities of young unemployed graduates in the country. As a matter of fact, this is a conversation we've been having for a while now, because we do know that about 7 million Kenyans are unemployed. And when you touch on National Employment Authority, then questions start coming out, because you have several Kenyans out there who are unemployed, and they want someone at the helm of that body who will be able to come up with policies and strategies to help them get jobs or create jobs for them. Question is the person who was appointed able to do this? Yeah, that is the question you're asking this evening. And are these state appointments done on merit or not? Is there any future, if at all, for the youth out there? That is the conversation we're having this evening on The Big Story. So I'm bringing in our lead reporter, Sophia Wanuna, who is in Parliament building. Sophia, good evening. Lots of people disappointed, most of them youth, saying, we can also do these jobs. You have been appointing people who are 91-year-olds, 75-year-olds, 74-year-olds. Are you trying to tell us that we do not have young people who can do this? Are you trying to tell us that for us to qualify to get some of these jobs, we have to get to certain ages that are ranging from 60 to 70s to 90s? Sophia.
Indeed, good evening, Linda. And we've seen lots of those memes going out in social media. In fact, just before we went on air, I saw somebody tweet a picture of what appeared to be a young boy seated somewhere saying, I'm waiting to be 70 years old before I can get a state job in the country. So that sentiment just echoing some of what the feeling is out right now following those appointments yesterday. I have with me this evening to discuss a little bit more about not just that one appointment, but some of the recent ones we've seen in the recent past and the outcry around them. I have the leader of minority in the National Assembly, also the national chairman of the Orange Democratic Movement, John Mbadi. Thank you so much, sir, for making time for us. I wonder what you make of that appointment, Mary Wambui to the National Employment Authority.
Yeah, for me, I think the focus of our discussion should be the competence and capacity of Mary Wambui to chair a board that is responsible for looking and finding solutions to this big problem that we have in the country of employment. If you ask me in terms of whether she qualifies, probably no. Don't want to really concentrate much on the age, on whether she's a politician, etc. Because really, I think what is important for us to realize is that board appointments are not employment, so to speak. If you'll agree with me that the board members just earn allowances, and by the way, they meet not more than once a month, and the allowances range from a low of 5,000 to upwards of 40,000 before tax, and it's usually taxed at the highest percentage. So basically the highest you can earn in terms of allowances from boards is 28,000 per month. And that, I don't think, is something that you'd want to push our youth to. Our youth should be more productive. I think we need to look for ways. We must realize that this country has a high unemployment rate for our youth. And we need to look for solution to this. But the solution is not on board appointments. Boards are not, in my view, employment, so to speak.
And perhaps even the outcry is not that a young person, of course there is the angle that a younger person or whoever of more competence should have gotten the position, but it's what do they bring to the table? What experience does this particular person bring in? Because Kenya has an unemployment issue and quote-unquote crisis that has been described in some circles. We were discussing, in fact, that just last week here on The Big Story. So that when people look at Mary Wambui, do they see a person who can bring and raise the issues around unemployment to resolve the case?
I think, Sophia, one thing that we must admit as a country is that we have not been really so serious about the management of our state corporations, or parastatals, so to speak. We need to understand exactly what is the role of the boards of these parastatals. The board is the policy making organ of the board, and you cannot bring people who have no capacity or no competence, people who are ill-equipped in terms of professional background and even academic background, to put in a position where they're the ones who are charting the direction and the focus of the organization. So that is where I find fault with these appointments, and we have talked about it a number of times. I think we need to be clear and define how the minimum qualifications for members of various boards, even if it is a matter of putting it in the State Corporations Act, we need to. Even if it is a matter of putting in the specific parastatals Act or acts governing various parastatals, we should. Because really, if a board is responsible for employment creation, and then you put members of that board, people who cannot really have no capacity in terms of professional background, in terms of experience, in terms of expertise, in terms of academic background, then definitely what you are doing is creating a place for people who have little to do to be seen to be doing something, which I think is wrong. And it is not just this board. Look around, most of our state corporations, you will find that the people who are appointed to various boards are not really having the expertise to be able to run those boards in terms of policy decision making. Yes.
But Chair, one would also argue, going outside this specific situation and not personalizing it, that it could be borrowed. The executive, what they're doing is also coming from what Parliament has been doing in some of these appointments and approvals. For instance, in the Lands Commission, we have seen integrity questions raised about some members. Those have not been settled, and yet they've been cleared. Members who applied for chair but then have settled and been approved for members of the NLC, so that it becomes, what is even the point of these approval processes when even Parliament itself, in such cases, drops the ball in the people we end up with in institutions?
Well, I think in terms of appointment process, the whole process has challenges. I don't think we should. I can stand here and start defending Parliament and say that it is only the executive that makes decisions. There are appointments that come through Parliament, and a lot of times you ask yourself, really, was it worth pushing it through Parliament? We would have just maybe had the executive make the appointments and own it to the end, because vetting process of Parliament there was a reason for it. But when you approve people like some former cabinet secretary, whom I don't want to mention the name, I'm sure you know, passing through Parliament, people who barely have academic level beyond standard 8, being put in positions of decision making, serious positions of decision making. You can be good, but there are certain positions of management which require some level of education, and you cannot say that someone can just be put there and be able to perform without really thinking about the academic background of that person. There are also questions of integrity that have been raised, including the nominations and subsequent vetting and appointment to the National Land Commission. And this is not an isolated case. I know probably you are talking about the tax issue, but to me, I think that was a smaller issue. The issue that I would treat with which I would look at and say needed to be addressed differently are issues of serious integrity issues. And people have been vetted and approved by Parliament for appointment who have integrity issues. On the tax issue, I would be a bit lenient on that because there were questions as to whether this person was cleared, etc. But let us stay with the bigger picture and not zero in on a particular case. That Parliament has also a responsibility, which I must admit a number of times we have also failed Kenyans in terms of vetting process. Yes.
And many then will turn back to now what has become a common narrative, the question of where is opposition? Is opposition dead in Kenya? You are the leader of the minority in the National Assembly. When the executive is seen to cross that line, where is your voice?
First of all, I want to dissuade this thinking that opposition is dead, that opposition in the system we are in, that we are supposed to see opposition objecting or opposing or criticizing a government. We should understand the system of government where we are in. This is a presidential system. And a presidential system, Parliament as a whole, is required to exercise oversight. And we just came from a parliamentary or something that is close to a pure parliamentary system to a presidential system. That is why we are raising a number of issues. Parliament is supposed to vet these individuals as an institution, and Parliament is supposed to hold the executive to account. In fact, the current system, to me, probably is even better, because when we had this adversarial kind of relationship between Jubilee and the opposition, you could see even if the opposition had any good idea, it would not be implemented. Always, if ODM had a good idea, or NASA or CORD had a good idea, it could not be implemented because Jubilee had to take a firm position. Currently, you can see members from Jubilee, members from ODM and other parties can gang up together and even oppose a government initiative. That is the way it should be. Parliament should be independent from the executive in a presidential system. But not that we are not doing our work, we are doing our work also as minority, not opposition, but as minority side. We are doing our work. We have not seen cases where it is clear and evident that the interests of the public would be compromised, that we have kept quiet. I don't think so. And if there are such cases, we will still come out and object to and oppose such initiatives. Yes.
And one other recent case that has seen, again, public outrage is around the nomination of Mwenda Mwinzi ambassador. And the question I would put to you, the matter is before court, but when Parliament approves with a conditionality, should it work that way? Should it be approve or fail to approve, as opposed to approve then on condition you do 1, 2, 3, and then it becomes a hullabaloo?
I am one person who had who actually had the feeling or the thinking that probably Parliament would have just gone the full hog. Like I said when this matter came up, that we probably would have just rejected the nomination as opposed to giving a conditional approval. But when you look at, if you look at the law critically, it's like the law allowed for that conditional approval, because the law says that the person should not take up the position, should renounce the dual citizenship and renounce the other citizenship before the person takes the position. So you can argue that you cannot just reject, because the law allows that person to renounce before taking up the appointment. So then, based on that, you can understand on what basis Parliament approved it. But you see, there are still also question marks around whether what Parliament did was right, that really was this position. Does this position require renouncing dual citizenship or not? Whether this is a state office that requires that kind of treatment, and whether we are not going back on the gains we have made in terms of allowing Kenyans who are citizens by birth to enjoy dual citizenship. So there is still that question, that whole debate. It is in court. Parliament had made a decision. I'm part of the Parliament, but I just wanted to add answer you in summary by saying that probably Parliament had a reason based on the law, because the law allows the renouncing of the dual citizenship before taking up the appointment.
Yeah. Finally, sir, there are Kenyans watching tonight and who watch events unfold in this country and say it depends on who you know to get ahead in life. So that For instance, in positions, appointments, you look at the KICC CEO, a relative of the president. You look at Tiyala, a brother of the former prime minister, son of the former vice president, and other appointments seem to be nepotism, quote unquote, based, is some of the narrative that goes out there. So what do you tell, and also the political, quote unquote, awards, those who failed in electoral, being re-elected in whatever offices and getting different positions. So what do you tell Kenyans who say, I wish there was a level playing field?
For me, this is the way I would look at this issue. First, if you are appointed purely and it's purely based on the fact that you know who and so, or you are related to so and so, if that is the only criteria upon which you are appointment, then I think that appointment is wrong. But again, we have to be very careful, because if you are related to a senior person in this country, or you are related to the president or the prime minister or a deputy president, or who says that you should not get employment? We all go to school, and when we go to school, we want to also be employed and get jobs. And the fact that some of your relative is a senior person should not condemn you. Because again, really, there are certain families in this country who cannot just get employment anywhere else. Probably politics is where they would get the employment. Now you block them from accessing that employment through political whatever, through political efforts, let me put it like that. And then you condemn them to, if they are appointed, then it is seen that they have been favored.
But perception, sir.
Yes, perception is there, but is it only in this country where relatives of presidents and deputy presidents or whoever are getting state appointments? It happens everywhere, so long as you have the qualification. To me, I think what we need to be pushing is, before these appointments are made, all Kenyans should be given equal opportunity. That is what the Constitution calls for under Article 10. And the values and principles, because there you find that there is a requirement that for any appointment to a public office, there is need for fair playing ground. You need to allow fair competition. You need to advertise if it is a position that requires advertisement. At least there should be a demonstration that people were given an opportunity. At the risk of sounding like I'm defending the appointment of Oburu Odinga to Iyala, actually the party gave the Oburu Odinga was given an opportunity together with the rest. He applied like any other person. The party shortlisted them. In fact, he was not the only one whose name was brought to Parliament. We brought a number of names to Parliament, and MPs voted. And by the way, ODM doesn't even have majority in Parliament. So members of Parliament, and overwhelming, if you look at the results, he got overwhelming support across the board from Jubilee to ODM. So you cannot say that Raila Odinga, in fact, even the meeting which approved his name to Parliament, the party leader did not even attend. I chaired the meeting, and I would tell you we debated, and it brought the names. The same with any other appointment. I cannot speak for the president's relatives, the ones you have mentioned. I don't know how the chair of KICC was appointed, etc. But I would tell you, if you give equal opportunity to Kenyans to participate, there is nothing really wrong with Kenyans. I mean, anyone who is related to any senior politician. You are saying, Sophia, in short, that my son should not get a job in government. And just because I'm a member of Parliament for Suba South and a minority leader, if you find my son working, say, in Parliament, I have my daughter is a lawyer, is actually finishing Kenya School of Law. You are telling me she cannot come and work in Parliament, she cannot go and work in Attorney General's chambers. If she is qualified to do that job, she should. The only thing is that she should not be given preferential treatment over others. That is the only thing that we should be pushing, but not condemning relatives of politicians. Then people will fear going into politics. Who would then run these public offices?
All right, thank you very much. John Badi, the leader of minority in the National Assembly, national chairperson of the Orange Democratic Movement, saying it's all about ensuring a level playing field across the board. It cuts equally, whether one is a politician or not. It's that level playing field, Linda.
Sophia, thank you. Sophia Nuna there speaking to John Badi, and he raises pertinent issues. He says, I mean, we should not essentially be looking at the age. The question we should be asking this evening is about the competency and the capacity of the person in question. If they're able to perform in that position, then that conversation should end there. But really, should it? And that is the question we are posing this evening. And all this has been raised by the appointment of Mary Wambui to be the chairperson of the National Employment Authority. And Kenyans are very unhappy, A, because of her age, B, because of a political background, and C, they just don't think that she is the right person to be there. And this is why, because about 7 million Kenyans out there are unemployed. And obviously they are frustrated, so they were hoping that perhaps the person who would be put to head the National Employment Authority would be someone who will be able to come up with policies and strategies to ensure that at least that number of 7 million comes down. This is why this is a concern. In September last year, 2018, President Uhuru Kenyatta was endorsed as the global champion for young people's agenda. And in his acceptance speech, he said, and I quote, "Progress for the youth means progress for the entire humanity. We do not champion the cause of youth opportunity and hope as a favor, but rather as the necessary, undeniable embrace of our collective future. We must give young people education and employment opportunities if our societies are to live up to their full promise. On your part, embrace your chance to lead by seizing opportunity and turning it into tangible achievement. You must stand up. Offer yourselves, dedicate yourselves, shoulder responsibility, and carry the world into the future." End of quote. So that is President Uhuru Kenyatta admitting that indeed the future of this country, the future of the world is in the hands of the youth. However, that is not reflective of recent appointments that we have seen of individuals who are way past their retirement age, 90s, 70s. And that is the conversation we're having this evening. We will be speaking to Jared Okello, who's the Nyando Member of Parliament. We'll be speaking as well to Didmas Baraza, Member of Parliament Kiminini. Right now, let me quickly get the mind of David Osiani, who's a political analyst on phone. David, thank you for joining us on The Big Story this evening. So the first question I want to ask you, Sophia Wanuna has just been speaking to John Badi, and John Badi says, I mean, we should all look at the competency and the capacity of the person in question. Age should not be an issue at all. From where you sit as a young person, quote unquote, should age be an issue?
Well, thank you very much, Linda, for having me. I need to quip and say from the outset that every appointment that is made by the president should primarily and fundamentally inspire confidence. Now, one would argue that age is not a problem, but I think there needs to be sensitivity to the goings-on in the country. Increasingly, the country and its young people are feeling left out. Ordinarily, the president, being the champion for the youth globally and wearing that hat, should be seen to be advancing closer and more to young people and including young people more and more on the decision-making tables and having them in the policy-making tables in this country. Now, the problem with the appointment of Honorable Mary Wambui is that it has not inspired confidence. Remember, Ambassador Mudaura was appointed to Kenya Revenue Authority, and yes, whereas age has a role to play, and people would have said on the basis of age, this may not be perfect, all of us agree that Ambassador Mudaura has had a stellar performance in public service. So I am going to be advocating much more for generational mix. You cannot seem to put the young people in the periphery. More and more, the desire to have young people must be displayed in the appointment. You know, young people do not have channels of applying to sit on boards. That's a prerogative of ministries and the president, if need be. Especially chairpersons are appointed by the president. The directors are appointed by the different cabinet secretaries. So if an appointment does not inspire confidence, then it must be relooked at. Is the candidate who has been appointed suitable for that role? When we talk suitability, it's about all-roundedness. Does she have the tenets? Does she have the values? Does she have the skill that would enable her sit and perform in that function properly? And in this case, sadly, it doesn't seem so.
For that quick comment, because I wanted to pick your mind on it as well. Let me now bring in Didmas Baraza Kiminili, Member of Parliament, and Jared Okello Nyando, Member of Parliament. Didmas, let me begin with you. Both Mbadi and Osiani say it should not be about the age. It should be about the competency of this person. Are they able to deliver in the capacity in which they're appointed? Was this done on merit? Are we leaving out the young people in the country? What is going on?
Kenyans were not stupid to insert a section into the constitution putting the retirement age to be 60. It means there is a reason, but for Mbadi to say what he has said, I was not surprised because first, himself, his party leader, is about age 75, even though I've realized today in the morning that he's actually 79. He was born 1940. And the fact that, Mary Wambui is at the age of his party leader, I don't think, I was not expecting him to have a problem with that. Secondly, the youth have had problems for very many years. The youth neglect by government began as an infection, and it has grown into a big disease that needs a surgeon to fix it. And that surgeon is not Mary Wambui. That surgeon must be a person who inspires confidence in them. It must be a young person. And if you see a person appointing retirees into position, this confirms that that person is experiencing a dry spell of ideas. He has no respect for the young people who have acquired modern education, using modern equipments, using modern systems. They have a new way of doing things that resonates very well with the current technology. And this shows that this government that is headed by my party leader, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, has no confidence in the young people. And the young people are about 20 million in this country. We voted for this government. We voted for His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta. And showing that he has no confidence in the young people, I think this is a spat on the face of the young people, and it's a scenario, it's a situation of one using a plate to feed himself, and then after he is satisfied, after he is full, he kicks the plate, throws the plate away. And going forward, I would want to ask my fellow young people in this country, my fellow young parliamentarians, that we must rise up to the occasion. We must defend what rightfully belongs to us. It is the young people, Linda, that put this country to where it is now. The people who fought for independence, the likes of Dedan Kimathi, they were young people at that time. A country that neglects the young people, a country that doesn't value the input of the young people, it's a very poor country, and that country's future is bleak. I say so, Linda.
This is what concerns me about this particular appointment, because this appointment was made by Labour Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani. This is a man who is in charge of Labour, essentially ensuring that there is enough Labour in the country, tagged alongside closely to employment in the country. Does it bother you that this appointment came from the Labour CS, who's essentially supposed to be in charge of issues to do with unemployment in the country, supposed to be fixing it in the first place, not making it worse as others see now, because all of you have alluded to the fact that it's about perception. Does it bother you that this came from Labour CS?
It bothers me a lot.
Hold on, that's for Jared. Washimiwa, can you hear me? Jared Okello, can you hear me?
Yes, Linda, I can hear you.
Okay, go.
Well, thank you very much, Linda, for this opportunity. First things first, I loved your curtain raiser by so bringing in the President of the Republic of Kenya answering to castigations about his appointment of what would pass for an octogenarian, my brother Mudia Wari. The President, in his defense, did allude to the fact that you cannot trust many young people with monies or state funds because of their penchant for stealing. That is a blanket condemnation I do know that we still have some very good patriotic young Kenyans exhibiting integrity in their various fora of discharge of their duties. And therefore, for the president, therefore, to come up and say that you cannot be able to trust young people was utterly misplaced. Secondly, Linda, if you allow me, the Constitution in Article 260 talks about who passes to be a public officer or a state officer. And the discussion that you have brought forth relates to people who have been appointed by the president either to be state officers or public officers, but with a big concern about the age set. My brother Didmas has brought in the name of the former prime minister, who is neither state officer nor a public officer. And therefore, such kinds of discussions are bereft of adequate knowledge about what exists within our government and within our constitutional realm. You have brought in a point that, yes, it concerns every Kenyan that this has come from no one but the minister in charge of employment or labor. And this is the same person who, just a while back, was given an additional portfolio to hold fort for the Treasury as the president awaits clearance of the former Treasury Cabinet Secretary. What we can say at this point in time is that there is absolutely no problem having people of a particular age set being appointed to government to discharge particular mandates. But if the age is that which approaches sunset, then there must be a peculiar expertise which do not ordinarily exist within a particular platform. We have seen 80-year-olds still discharging various duties because of the kind of experience and knowledge they have. And there's a very good reason as to why former presidents in the United States of America or state Secretary of States would go back to teach at the universities, because besides the knowledge that they acquired in the course of their studies, they have additionally gained a lot of experience the world over, which then becomes an integral part of various curriculums in universities. And if we were to have such kinds of people here in Kenya with such peculiarity, then I would be the first person to support the appointments within government. A question in point at this,
hold on,
moment
Jared.
is about
I absolutely have to take our first break at this point, but we'll come back with this discussion. You're watching The Big Story. We are having a conversation with Jared Okello and Didmas Barasa. We'll be back in a couple of minutes, just looking at the latest appointments to state agencies by President Uhuru Kenyatta.